Welcome back to another episode of the AmandaFest podcast, where our mission is simple. It's to inspire and empower our audience to take aligned action towards their dream lives, whatever that looks like for you. I have a really special guest here today, Rachel Molenda, aka DJ RAE. She is a sacred DJ and mindset coach. Imagine if Diplo and Tony Robbins had a baby. That's how she describes herself, and it's amazing. She is the creator of Reunion, which is an all-women's alcohol-free dance party. Rachel is loved for her authenticity, vulnerability, and courageous energy. Rachel uses magic, dance, mindset strategies, and in-person experiences to help people remember their power and to catapult them into doing the damn thing that they were born to do. Today, we are going to be talking all about doing the damn thing. Starting messy, starting without knowing what it's going to be, and just trusting the universe and taking that aligned action to live the life of your dreams. As we've done with every episode, before we dive into this juicy conversation, we're just going to take a quick second to ground, get present, get in our bodies, and just arrive here in this moment. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if it's safe to do so, I invite you to close down your eyes. I always like to put a hand on my heart and one on my belly, just to connect in with my body. And just start tuning in to your internal world and noticing. Notice your breath going in and out. Notice if you're holding tension. If you're scrunching your shoulders up, maybe you got some tension in your jaw. Just use this as an opportunity to allow yourself to relax. And we're going to take some nice cleansing breaths in together through our nose. And on the inhale, we're going to be thinking about something that we want to call in. We're setting an intention for this hour-long listening session. So with a nice deep breath in through our nose, we're going to set our intention. And with the exhale, letting go. Maybe we're letting go of a feeling, an emotion, a thought, a worry, something that no longer serves us. Just letting that all go with the exhale. And we're going to take a couple cleansing breaths in and out, just like this. So in, filling yourself up with all the things you want to be full with and feel good with. And letting go of anything that no longer serves us. And one last nice deep breath in and out with your mouth. Feel free to shake it out, make some movement. Arrive here and now. Welcome to your bodies. Welcome to AmandaFest and welcome Rachel. Hi.
What's going on?
I am so happy you're here.
I'm so happy you're here and that you exist and that we met.
You guys have no idea how awesome this connection story is. So Rachel DM'd me, like, what was it, 2 weeks ago? I'll let you tell this part. Yeah. How did you find me?
Yeah, one of my friends, my good friend Vicky, she sent me your profile and she was like, this girl's doing some similar stuff to what you're doing and just has a great vibe. I feel like you should connect. And immediately when I saw your page, I was just like, whoa, I really felt like we have similar energies. And it's weird that I meet someone that's very much like me in that way. And I just had to reach out, and specifically because you're advocating for partying and playing as a form of therapy and coming back home to yourself, which I feel like that's a new sort of message that's coming about. And I was like, we're doing similar stuff. And I just knew that we had to connect. So, and then here we are.
Yeah, it was so cool. So she sent me a DM. And then through that DM conversation, we were like, yeah, like there's definitely synergy here. We started following each other for literally 2 weeks, not even that long. The internet is so cool. I've been sharing authentically for the last couple months now, like very seriously. And it's just very cool to see that it's translating and that people are not only my words getting out, people are hearing about me, but also that when you land on my page, you can feel the vibe and the energy. And I felt the exact same way about yours. The minute I went to your page, it was extremely clear who you were, what you were doing, what you were all about, what your energy was. And so we decided to hop on a call just to chat and see what could come of it. And I was like, well, immediately, I would love to have you on the podcast because Rachel's story is so fucking cool. Not only is it super, super aligned with the AmandaFest mission, right? All about party and play and intentionality, but also the target demographic of AmandaFest is ambitious dreamers. It's people that are getting clear on their mission, going after their shit and just doing the damn thing. And you are the true embodiment of that message. I'd love to hear a little bit about your story, like your journey to becoming a DJ and stepping into your purpose with what you're doing right now.
Yeah, well, thank you, thank you, thank you for
Yeah.
all of that. That was so great, and I'm just so glad that we connected, and that we're here and we're chatting about this. So 2 years ago, my journey began when I was 31. I went to my first ever rave, and it changed my life. I left that rave feeling so inspired, so alive, and I got all these business ideas during it. I was like, this is wild. And so I just kept going that summer. And at the same time, I had so much shame about it because I was like, what am I doing at the age of 31, going to raves, adorning myself in sparkles on the weekends and staying out late when my friends are buying homes and getting married and having kids. But I couldn't deny just how powerful it was. So I continued on that track and slowly started to find my pals and my community. And I was like, okay, I can be here. Because for a while I was like, what am I doing? I was a mindset coach at the time. And I was like showing up like proper mindset coach and you should live your life like this. I mean, the essence of Rachel's always been there, but during that time I was definitely presenting as a professional woman.
Right.
So knowing that I was partying on weekends felt like such a contrast, and I felt like I had to hide it. And slowly I started dripping it out. I started doing these good morning dances purely because I follow someone on Instagram that's like, you should anchor your stories with something to start your day with so that it's easier to create content after. And so I start every story every day. I've been doing this for almost a year and a half now. I'll be dancing to a track and I'll just put good morning on it. And it's a fun way to express. I've really gotten into expressing with my clothing. So it actually gives me a reason to be like, okay, let's think a little bit more about my outfit today, knowing that I'm going to be presenting on here. And so I'm doing these morning dances. People are loving them. They're like, you should throw a dance party. And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. And I got curious about DJing, just being in the rave scene. And I mentioned it to a friend. He's like, oh, I have a controller that you can use. I'm not using it right now. So I borrowed it for 3 months. I think I touched it like once or twice. And I was like, this is hard. I don't want to do it. And then last December, so 2023, he's like, hey, Rach, can I get the controller back? And I was like, fuck, I haven't even touched it. And I was like, can you just give me another week? I really want to do this. I'm going to find one on Marketplace and figure this out. And he's like, well, you can just buy mine if you want. And I was like, okay. So I bought it for $200. And then I was like, okay. In the mindset world, it said that if you want to bring something to life, there's 2 ways we go about it. You got to tell someone and you got to put a date to it. Your likelihood of doing something goes from 10% to 90% when you do those things. So last Christmas, I was like, okay, I'm going to throw a dance party in 30 days. And to force myself to learn how to DJ, I'm going to DJ it. And I announced it to the world. And I was like, we're doing this. And I knew nothing about any of these things at the time. Up until this point, for the past 8 years, my whole business has been online, on coaching, on Zoom. I knew nothing about in-person events. I knew nothing about DJing. I knew nothing about sound equipment. And I basically went into a washing machine for that month being like, ooh, any spare time or second I had, I was researching and planning. But also when you decide something, the people and the places and everything starts to show up. A month prior to that, I was in the sauna Othership, which is a love that you and I have in common as well, which is super cool. And I met this woman and I shared with her how I'm really passionate about dance. She's like, well, I'm passionate about dance. And I just got this space that I want to use for community gathering. So initially we were actually planning to do it together. I was like, I'm just going to do this one on my own. I would love to use your space, but this is going to be like the Rachel dance party.
Yeah.
And the name Reunion came because a month prior to that, I was on a mastermind call with some people and I was trying to figure out what's my thing. Because for the past 2 years, I've felt a little lost. And my friend was like, it sounds like you're talking about terms like coming home to yourself and remembering who you are. She's like, the name Reunion is coming through. And I was like, Reunion. So I didn't know what Reunion was going to be then, but all these little seeds are planting. So last November, it was like Reunion. December, I found the space. Christmas Day, I was like, hey, I'm going to do this thing. January 25th, we threw our first reunion ever, and it was a freaking banger. And I served up my first DJ set. It was so much fun. And then the next day I was like, do you guys want to do that again? They're like, yeah. And we sold out the next one in 24 hours. We doubled our capacity from 30 to 60, and it hasn't stopped. Last week we threw a party with 110 women, and again, announced the next one, sold 90 tickets in 24 hours. And it's just clear the women want to dance.
That is so cool. I feel like I've heard mixed opinions about sharing before you're doing, but I'm a big believer in it because I think that it helps hold you accountable, right? If you're like, hey, I'm doing this thing, I'm building this thing. One, you're also speaking it into existence, like fake it till you make it mentality. You're like, I am this, and therefore you are. Who's to say you're not? You're just doing it. But I like the added idea of putting a date to it. Really cool concept.
I think the thing I'll add on to that is that I think the reason why they say don't share is because if you're not fully rooted and grounded in it yourself, like if you don't fully believe it, then you're more susceptible to people's opinions. Like you share with your parents and they're like, oh, go get a real job. Like you gotta, like, I would just say make sure you have a strong backbone first. Like I knew that I was doing it, and I also didn't make it out to being a big thing in the beginning. I wasn't like, hey, mom and dad, I'm becoming a DJ. It wasn't like that. I think it's really important to see yourself as the thing that you're becoming before you actually are the thing. So I remember when I would look at that DJ controller, I was like, this is so frustrating because I feel like I'm born for this. I feel like I'm made for this. I feel like I'm a DJ. I just don't know how to do the things yet.
Yeah,
So I felt like it. And then once I actually started learning the craft, it was 3 months and it was March where I was like, my Instagram bio was a mess. If you actually would have saw it in March, you'd be like, who is this girl? Mindset coach that like dances. And then I was just like, I'm going to own it. I'm just going to put DJ in the title. And even though some people might have been like, who does she think she is to claim that so fast? I actually think that's part of the reason why I was able to adopt it so quickly and to be seen that way and to be treated that way and therefore get gigs and grow everything.
What did you say? 45 gigs in the first how long?
Since January 25th, I've done 45 performances. Those are a mix of reunion and other gigs, but like I had a residency this summer at a winery. I booked a wedding. Like
you're doing it. You're a DJ.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a big year.
That's so fucking cool. Looping back quickly to the idea of spirituality and the rave scene. It is a fairly new concept. I worked with a partner, this guy named Evan. We created this thing called No Fun, like KNOW, that I was doing. That was my bridge into this space. I feel like people in the spiritual community and in the mindset world that are doing a lot of personal development work, there's a lot of shame and ick around partying, right? There's a lot of dark energy in those spaces. Sometimes the music isn't very pure. There's a lot of drugs and alcohol and impure motives and behavior and people. So people oftentimes in those spiritual spaces really dislike being at those places. I have felt this download and this calling for a while. It's funny that you're saying all these words kind of came through to you and you're like, I don't know what that means, but I'm just going to take that. I don't know what that means. I've been feeling a lot of that too, where 2 years ago, all of a sudden the term bridge the gap kept coming through to me. Bridge the gap, bridge the gap. And I was like, what does that mean? Bridge the gap. What do you mean bridge the gap? Between what and what? It's between the conscious community and mainstream. Cool. I've been feeling this pull where I'm like, I always felt like I lived in both worlds. I never felt like I was fully one and I was fully the other. And I almost felt like I was always an imposter in either space because I would go to the spiritual spaces and do that. But I'm like, this isn't me 100% of the time. And then vice versa, I go to the party, I go to the rave, and I'm like, I'm fucking doing yoga in the morning, guys. Like, there's some dissonance here until I realized you don't have to choose. You can be both. And what I found is like raves, parties, festivals, like those spaces need people like us to be in the rooms, to be the example of what's possible to other people, because majority of people in those spaces, they're just on autopilot, right? They have always done things a certain way. They're taking their drugs, they're doing their this. And a lot of people aren't really clear on what it is they're doing. And there's the rave plur and there's elements of beautiful intentionality weaved into the rave culture, but it's missing something.
Well, I definitely felt like I had to choose. I was like, I didn't feel like I made sense in either and that I was a hybrid. And I feel like that's why labels we know this, labels get us so stuck. Even you being like, you know, who am I right now? It's like, you're Amanda. That was the best advice someone gave to me, but I didn't get it at the time. I was like, am I a mindset coach? Am I a speaker? And it was my coach at the time where she was like, Rachel, I don't know when you're just going to see it, but you're just Rachel. And once you see that, your life is going to open up. And actually, I had that realization. I DJ'd this event in September, and I had the moment where I was like, oh, we literally just have to be ourselves. And like,
Yeah.
I get it now. I just have to be Rachel. But just to that other point, it can be intense, raves. Even for me, sometimes it can be a lot. And I'm actually happy I didn't discover raves and drugs anytime earlier, because I don't know if I would have been able to. I mean, I've always been like a scaredy cat when it comes to drugs, and like
Yeah.
have always been very careful with things. So I think I would have had some regard for myself. But now I have a past as being a holistic nutritionist. And so when I go out, I don't do drugs all the time
Right.
when I go out, but my first time I was on MDMA. I will say that.
I love
Which is
it.
what made it so great as well. But I don't do it all the time. Music is the drug, right? Anyway, to my point there, I've learned how to care for myself as a
Yeah.
result. I go to raves and I come home and you feel that sort of dark energy on you. So I have a whole ritual and process where I sage after, and I make a lavender tea, and I put my legs up the wall. I lay on my biomat, and I'm like, wow. And I actually wake up feeling healthy as ever. Even if I went to bed at 3 or 4 a.m., I'll allow myself to sleep. But
Yeah.
literally when I feel funky, I'm like, I got to go party, quote unquote party. But it's not partying as people think of it. And I think that's why it gets a bad rep in the personal development world.
Yeah.
And even people that don't fully get it. And that's why I had shame over it, because I was like, I don't want people to just think I'm a careless party girl. It's not what it is. I don't feel like I'm going partying when I go to a rave. I feel like I'm going to remember who I am.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Rachel.
Oh my God. Yes. 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 I resonate with so much of that so deeply. And I feel exactly the same. You're showing up differently in these spaces. You're partying as a means to connect, not as a means to disconnect.
Yeah.
And I love, love, love what you're saying about taking care. I was telling you about when I went to see Rufus Du Sol in Tulum in 2022. And I remember I took mushrooms, and beforehand, because it's Mexico, I made sure to have these giant waters. And I was like, okay, I'm going to definitely want this in the room for when I get back. And I remember I got home, I took a nice hot shower, I put lotion all over my body, I brushed my hair, I put it in a braid, I drank my water, and I was still on the mushrooms. I remember looking in the mirror and looking at my pupils, and I was just like, I take such good care of myself. I am so grateful. And I'm not preaching to people, do drugs. My whole message around substances, around anything, it's all about intentional consumption. With whatever you do, it's your choice. If you're an adult, you could decide what you do or do not want to do, when you do or do not want to do it. My only advice is just be intentional about it. Don't just do it mindlessly and have no regard for why, where, when, who, all the things. But with that, I don't do drugs all the time when I go out. And if anything, most of the time I'll do a microdose of something just to get a little glimpse of it. But what I have found, and what I'm sure you've experienced with MDMA or whatever you've participated in, is I believe a big part of those medicines is to show us what is possible and to give us that felt sense understanding within our bodies so that we have the capacity to tap back into that when we're sober and know how to do it when we're sober. You were telling me a little bit about that MDMA experience. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. Essentially, it's creating a template. So when I did MDMA for the first time, actually, I wouldn't say that was like my most pivotal moment. There was a time this summer where I did it, and it was truly one of the best nights of my life. It was at a festival, and I was doing work around dating, and I discovered this thing with dating where I'm actually afraid of intimacy, which was interesting to notice. And my intention for the weekend, I forget the exact words, but it was something like to be my most playful self and to invite an intimacy. And intimacy, just as in closeness and being seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have this, I'm just going to share this. I have this thing where in my dating life, I've been known to settle, and I won't actually go for the guy that I really want because there's a part of my subconscious that might feel not deserving or they're too good for me. And so if I talk to a super hot guy that I'm interested in, I'll just crumble. I'll turn into a little weirdo, like little kid. And then when I was on MDMA, it was like my heart just opened. And then I was just like, I was like dancing like my weirdo rage self, and I was going up to the hottest guys and just like vibing and being my playful self. And then they were playing with me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is my truest self. And all I had to do is close my eyes. I'll put on a track that reminds me of that weekend, and it just takes me back.
I have
And
chills all over my
now,
body.
yeah, me too, me
And I'm
too.
like tearing, like
Yeah, I have this template in my body of what I know is possible and who I truly am. Same thing with like multiple nights on mushrooms, being my I'm actually really silly and playful. I think I present with that, but when I'm on mushrooms, I'm just like the silliest. And what my
yeah.
friend see it, she's like, I love this version of you. And I was like, I love her too.
Yeah.
And in my everyday life, I can get a little rigid, I can get a little tight. But when I engage in psychedelics in these ways, it opens us up. And now you have this memory. If I were to create like a protocol of someone going through this, I'd say start by going to a rave, just experience it. Don't take anything, go completely
Yeah.
sober. And then I actually do wish for, I should make a disclaimer. Doctor doesn't recommend this.
But
Or check with your doctor before. And I think everyone should try drugs, specifically MDMA. At least mushrooms once in your life. Just try it. I even told my parents, I'm like, guys,
set and setting though. Set and setting are
setting.
so
Yeah.
so
I'm gonna get to
important.
that point. But first, I want everyone to experience this, and the intention and the whole set and setting around it is very important.
Yeah.
Right. And then from there, you decide. I actually, one thing I don't love about rave culture is how it's so automatic. What are we doing? What party favors are we partaking in? It's like,
It
maybe that
doesn't
doesn't
have
even
to
have to
be
be
a
a
given.
thing.
It doesn't have to be a
That's not even be
given.
given. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because
I will say for me personally at shows and festivals, depending on who I do a lot of things by myself as well.
Mm.
So for me, being alone, there's another level of I don't feel safe enough to really go deep in any substance. I have been at festivals and raves on different substances, but I will say for the most part, I am on a microdose of something because I know for me, that's all I need. I know I can tap into that energy. And I honestly, at this point, like don't even really need that.
Yeah.
But it's not a given. And people know that about me too. I will always check in with myself.
Mm-hmm.
I will drop in, I'll get clear on, okay, what's my intention for this night? I love that you said that you had an intention for the weekend. That's something that I really hone in with people. It's like, have an intention, get clarity because, and this is a really good example, before I learned about setting intentions for social experiences, subconsciously, my intention every single time I went out was to meet someone. Every time.
Oh,
Every time.
yeah.
My goal always was I want to look hot and I want someone to notice me. I want to get someone's number. I want to go home with someone. I want to meet someone. And no matter what I did that night, no matter how epic that night could have been, no matter how beautiful the connections with my friends could have been, no matter how awesome the DJ was, no matter what, if I didn't reach that goal, I would go home and cry and be sad and depressed and upset. And then vice versa. If I got it, it was like a fleeting little game, but
Yeah.
it's funny because it was so subconscious. I didn't even realize I was doing that. And I missed so much. I missed so many beautiful moments that I wish I was present for because I was like, who's looking at me? Oh. And now I'm like, yeah, sometimes I go out and I'm like, not really actually, but you know, every
Yeah, and now I'm like, don't talk to me. I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm
now
waiting for the beat drop here.
yeah, now I'm like, excuse me. I have a very funny story. I went to Vegas recently to see Louis the Child. And most people do not go to Vegas clubs specifically to see a DJ. They go to get fucked up or to fuck. Like that's basically
True.
it. And I was there and my goal, my intention for the night was to get behind the DJ booth. I was like, I want to be in it, like, you know. And so I was inching my way up closer and closer. And I end up at one of the tables closest to the DJ booth. This group of guys invited me, my friends there. And these guys are all trying to flirt with me. And then Louis the Child went on and I was like, excuse me, the show has begun. Please,
Yeah.
please do not disturb me.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm at a concert now. Excuse
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and when people start talking to even my friends know this, it's like, don't, I mean, within reason, but it's just like, don't talk to me while we're here. I just want to throw down.
And it's fun too to get to set intention with your friends. And some
Yeah.
shows I go, like you and I were to go out to a show together, maybe I'm like, hey, I want to fucking dance my ass off tonight. Or it's one of my favorite DJs. I'm like, I want to get to the front rail and I want it to just be like me and the DJ and nobody else.
Yeah.
Or I'll be like, I don't actually care who's playing tonight. I just want to have a good time with you. I want to get to know you and hang out with you, and like, let's hang out in the back and chat. And or it could be like, let's be silly and go make as many friends as we can tonight. Whatever it is, there's so many options and so many goals, and it can always shift and change. But just getting clarity and asking yourself that question of, how am I feeling right now? What am I desiring? And what do I want to get out of this social experience is such a fucking game changer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like what you focus on grows, right? So
Yeah.
and I can relate. Like 20s Rach, like it was all about finding a guy and
Right?
getting chosen or whatever. And now usually my intention is to tap into my most playful self, like to lead with my
Yeah.
playfulness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Follow your curiosity.
Yeah.
Allow what wants to unfold. Sometimes my intention is I'm calling in magic, and then magic. I'm like, I want a lollipop, and someone's like, here's a lollipop.
I
And I'm
love
like,
it.
and I'm like, I want this, and someone's like, here you go. Have you ever been to Burning Man?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know it. Burning
Did you
Man.
go?
Not this past year, but I've been a few times.
I wonder if we went. Did you go in 2023?
Oh, what years did I go? 18, 19, and 2022.
Oh, damn. I think we're gonna end up going to Burning Man together.
This year, yeah, I know. It's all happening. But magic, dude, like magic. And it's also gotten to a point now with the magic where I'm just like, of course. I expect magic. I expect insanely magical things. But it's all about that tuning in. I have another really quick story that I feel like you'd love. I went to see, are you a Dolla fan?
Yep.
Okay, so I went to see Dolla at Forest Hill Stadium in New York a few months ago, and splurged on a ticket that I got fucked by SeatGeek.
By what?
SeatGeek, it's like a resale.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So I got fucked by them, where basically I paid extra because I thought I was paying for VIP floor seats, and it turned out that it was just all GA, but it was first come first serve for the floor. So I arrived late and all the floor seats were gone. And I was like, damn, I was ready to like get up on the rail tonight. So I was like, okay, universe, I'm here. Let's figure it out. So I ended up finding another spot. It was the best spot possible that wasn't on the floor. And I was there, and the vibes around me just weren't vibing. There was a group of younger girls behind me that were in that pick me energy, and I could feel it. And I was just like, okay, I usually create this little, like white light of just protection around me, especially in those spaces like we were talking about with like taking care. And I was just like, okay, all right. And I was trying so hard to get into it, and I couldn't. And eventually I did a check-in with myself, and I was like, Amanda, like, we're trying to force something that's not happening. Half of me was like, let's call it and go home. And then the other half of my brain was like, let's just move. Let's pretend like we're leaving, but we're open to not leaving and see what happens. I was resistant to leaving because it was the best spot I was going to get. So I was like, and I was like, we're not having fun. Like, at the end of the day, I'm not having a good time. So we're going to leave. So I left, and I started walking out of the stadium. And I see these two old dudes sitting. Sorry, that was ageist. Older men. I see these two older men sitting off in the corner, like smoking a joint. And I see one of them with the floor wristband and one of them without. And in my head, I'm like, they don't look like they're into this show. So I see them, I clock them, and I was like, maybe. And I was like, And I start walking towards the exit, and then I do like a pivot turn. And I was like, I'm gonna go back. So I go back over to this guy, and I'm like, hey, I was like, are you guys like done for the night? Are you going back in? And he was like, are you looking for a floor band? And I was like, I am. He doesn't give me the one on his wrist. He pulls one out of his pocket, and he goes, I've been looking for you all night. He was like, this is perfect. I have an extra one. Here you go. Have fun. I could have, that was just not even the crazy part yet. I could have taken the wristband and just been like, thanks, bye. But something in me was like, are you guys smoking? Like, can I join you for a minute? In the middle of the show, I'm like, let me hang out with these strange men. Sure. But that's just me.
Are you outside at this point? If you left.
No, we're still
Oh.
inside of the venue, but
Oh,
we're
I see.
outside. It was
Like
like a
you're by the
stadium.
popcorn stand.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm like, all right. So I sit down, I start smoking weed with these guys. And the guy is like, why are you here? Like, I just gave you a floor band. Like, go have fun. And I was like, yeah, I'll go in a minute. Like, give me a second. And I start talking to this guy, and I find out that he is the nephew of an older woman that lived in my apartment complex when I lived in Los Angeles. And I lived in like a 20-person, very small, very exclusive apartment complex. And I was like, one, that's crazy. But two, the fact that we figured that out, like that our
Yeah. I was gonna
conversation,
ask how you even get to
I
that.
was like, the fact that our conversation, and so then he's like, oh my God, I was so meant to meet you. He's friends with all of the security guards at that venue. And he was like, Amanda, take down my phone number. If you ever want to go to a show here, I got you covered. We're
Oh
front
my
row. And I
God.
was like, what?
Wow. Magic.
And I was just like, yeah, of course. Like,
Yeah.
of course that, but
Yeah.
like, and it would have been magical if he just gave me a band and I went in, but I was like,
Yeah.
there's more here. There's more.
Wow. Oh. Yeah, life is that magical. I had a moment. I was grocery shopping last week and my bill was like 111 dot like 84. And I was like, "Ooh, angel numbers." And she's like, "Maybe it's your lucky day." And I looked back at her and I was like, "Every day is my lucky day."
Yeah.
Like truly, like I have stories like this all the time and I think it's just listening and
Yeah.
following those nudges, right? Like I think they're all there. We see them or you don't. You have to be aware to them, but also those little pulls, they're the ones that kind of scare you because you're like, "Oh, am I gonna go up to this guy right now and ask for his bracelet?" And it's like those are the moments where you're like, "Hell yeah."
I think it's helpful for people to hear examples because I feel like you could talk about this all the time, but until
Yeah.
you're like in a real life moment of it and you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Cause I very easily in that story, I could have stayed and then I could have been like, it was a midnight, like, eh.
Yeah.
And that element of being open to,
Mhm.
like, I was fully surrendered to going home. If going home
Yeah.
is the journey, then going home is the journey, and that's okay. And every night doesn't need to be the best night ever. And I'm okay with that.
I have so many stories now that are coming because you're like, "Oh, I need examples." I think to what you just said, part of letting the magic in is letting go of what it's supposed to be as well.
Yeah.
Once you accept, you're like, okay, I'm good either way. I had an experience back in September. I went to Boston to DJ retreat and it was amazing. I did a 150 woman dance party. I felt so alive. I was like, I feel like everything's about to take off here even more. And then I was in the airport, just wanted to do a bit of work and my laptop wouldn't turn on. I was like, fuck. And then I realized, you know how some granola bars are like filled with coconut oil?
Yeah.
I had this coconut oily granola bar that had like seeped into my laptop. And for context, I became a DJ this January and I've never backed up my music because I was like, I'm gonna do this later. I'm gonna do this later. And actually 2 weeks prior to this, I was like, I should really think about backing up my music. And I chatted with this guy and he gave me this whole tutorial. I was like, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. So anyway, I can't turn on my laptop and I bring it to Apple and they're like, we'll see if we can do something. But anyway, in short, it was like, fuck, I might have lost 9 months worth of music. And I was doing a wedding the next week and I had 2 gigs that weekend. And I was like,
Fuck.
fuck. First, I couldn't sleep and I was crying and I was like, oh my gosh. And I went like this and I said, okay, I might have lost my laptop and all my music and that would really fucking suck. And that might have happened. What will I do? Okay, I'll call up all my DJ friends. Can you share your USBs? I'll get a replacement laptop in the meantime, da, da, da. And I just accepted it. I brought it to Apple and they're like, hey, we think we can revive it. And then as I'm paying, I need to back up the story. I couldn't sleep that night and I looked at my clock and it was 333. I looked up what that meant. It means lucky. Luck is coming. And then I'm checking out and I'm telling her the story of what happened. And she's like, oh, that's really unfortunate. But it sounds like we're going to be able to get it sorted. And I was like, thank you. Thanks for your belief. And
Yeah.
as I'm leaving, I'm like, what's your name? She's like, Lucky.
Shut the fuck up.
And then there's more. I met this woman at the retreat that I DJ'd. And I make these trust and surrender necklaces. And I gifted it to her. And she wears 2 necklaces, so they kept getting tangled. So she ordered this like necklace separator. I didn't even know these existed, but it's just so it can fall perfectly.
Yeah.
And she sends me a photo. It comes in this little jewelry satchel thing. It says lucky. It says lucky. The thing is called lucky. Anyway, so there's just things like that where you just don't know, and you just gotta trust. And when you see those signs, you don't really have to know what they mean, but like when they're that rampant, it's just like, okay, I'm protected, I'm guided.
It's like, universe, send me a signier sign. I need a signier sign.
Yeah.
Wait, so what ended up happening with the laptop? I'm on the edge of my seat here.
It got revived. It got revived,
Okay.
and actually cooler things that happened. So it didn't get revived for a week. So I had to do the DJ residency at the winery that weekend. And it was so cool because I had some of my old music that I could pull from. Like I could convert Spotify playlists I'd built. But then I was just working off of my friend's USB. So it was so cool because I was like playing music that I didn't really know. Electronic music is very formulaic, as you know. So once you see it, you kind of know how it's going to go. So I would just like listen in my ear to parts of it. I'm like, I think this will work. And then as I'm playing it, I'm like, holy shit, this is so good. And it ended up being one of my best. It's not really a set when I play at the winery because I'm just playing for 5 hours sort of thing, like patio vibes. But what people were dancing and I was vibing. And I think too, because it's like, it's nice to know your own music. And I get off when I hear something for the first time where I'm like, what is this? You know, that moment at a rave or a show when you're like, holy shit, this is like,
where it just drops and it drops perfectly good. And you're just like in the vibe and you're like, ah.
Yeah. So it showed me that like, yes, it's nice to have your music library and everything. And it's like, it showed me that the magic is you. The magic is me. The magic is us. It isn't the music. It isn't the laptop. And I did get my laptop back, so it was nice. I'm backing up my music now. The lesson has been learned. It's preparing me.
I literally just went to Apple this week because my laptop was just done for. It was really old, but I went to Apple to see if I could get reimbursement for it. And they were just like, yeah, your laptop's too old. Like we can recycle it for you if you want. Yeah. And then he was like asking me, he was like, do you want anything on this computer? And I was just like, no, no,
I know.
Like, let it go. I did a post about this morning of just like impermanence and non-attachment. And it's been such a present lesson in my life of just truly surrendering, letting go, and just releasing attachment to outcome. Because when you do that, and that's the hard thing, because people are like, okay, I don't care. But like secretly you care and you're still holding on to it. And it's like, it's a practice. It's not something you can do overnight. It's something you really got to work at. But once you truly get to that point where you trust and you know that the universe has your back, because it does, like, it's just all about how you perceive things. Because you could sit there and you're like, fuck my life, everything that I work for. Your mind could have gone so many directions with that laptop going. And because you held on to one, trust that everything will work out. But also, I feel like it sounds like you also were surrendered to the idea of like, I might have just lost it all. And what can I do? What is the actionable step here? Sitting there and being sad and cursing the world and being upset isn't productive in this situation. You can feel your feelings, move through them, like, not to say like toxic positivity, feel your feelings for sure. And then you need to get to a point where you're like, is this helpful? Is sitting in this and staying in this energy helping me when I have a wedding next week and I need to figure something out and I need to be in action right now because I am not going to fuck that up. I'm going to show up and it's going to be great. So what do I need to do?
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool because in any other sort of career point in my life, there might have been a story of like, if that happened, a similar thing happened, I'd be like, oh, maybe I'm not cut out for this. But what's cool is that because I really feel in alignment of my life right now, there was no part of that happening where I was like, oh, maybe this is a sign that it's not for me. It's just like, no, like things are going to happen all the time. Like life isn't void of challenges. What's important is that you're living in alignment to your life. And so when you're experiencing these challenges that are truly invitations and initiations to grow into who you're meant to be for what's next, then you're actually getting the right challenges. Like I needed that for whatever's coming next.
Yeah.
And so the work is really about letting it flow through you. Like, yes, it's going to stir the pot a bit and you're going to have this emotional turmoil for a moment. But if you can go through that with as much grace and ease as possible, I feel like that's when the universe gives you that standing ovation of like, well done. Well done, little grasshopper.
I knew you were ready. Now we're going to give you the next one.
Yeah.
I had a thing here about your paper bag thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you the reason I mentioned that too. So I got my paper bag right here, actually. So I was a little late to writing down my dreams this year. And then I think it was like, I don't know, January 5th, time was passing. I was like, oh, I really got to write this down. And so I don't know why I had this paper bags kicking around. I just tore off one side of it and I wrote down 2024 desires, goals, and intentions. Just knowing the value of writing things down,
Right.
figuring out where you're going. So I wrote a bunch of things down. And what's cool is that a lot of these things are happening. Some of them not as exactly, but I mean certain things like I have like DJ RAE. I want to DJ at Othership. Did that. Sarah Jenks Emerge event. That was the Boston retreat. I didn't save $100K for a down payment for a house. I'll tell you that. But again, that was also interesting to look at this being like,
I
a
wanted
lot
a
of
house.
these are, yeah. I'm like, that actually was not a burning desire for me this year. That's what I thought I should want or something. Right. But anyway, a lot of these things are happening. And truthfully, this has been one of the best years of my life. Not only, I mean, what's made it the ultimate best is that I just feel like I'm being my full self.
Yeah.
But also all of these cool things are happening as a result, right? And so at one of the last reunion dance parties, I was like, I'm going to give everyone a paper bag because similar to you, I love working with ambitious women. And I believe that we're all here live during this time because we've got gifts to share with the world. And so the idea is that people come to reunion to remember who they are. So you shake out the cobwebs of who you're not and you remember who you are. And then ideally, you have that energy, that template, similar to the template that MDMA or mushrooms can give us. You got this template of who you really are. And now you can go do the damn thing that you're meant to do. And so I was like, I'm going to give people a paper bag to write down their dreams after reunion, and it will be like a thing. Everyone will get like a paper bag and it will like, maybe people will share it on social media, No one shared. I didn't hear from anyone. Usually when I do something, people are like, oh, that made an impact. I'm like, great, we're on the right track. But I didn't hear anything. And so after the last reunion last week, our November party, before I left, I was looking at the paper bags and I was like, I don't know. Maybe it's like cute idea, but like maybe it didn't really hit. So I was like, okay, that's all right. I tried. So I left them at home. And then we do the group sharing circle at the end of reunion where people can share like what came up for them during the dance or just anything that they're carrying right now. And this woman grabs the mic and she goes, so I attended the last reunion where we got the paper bags. And on my paper bag, I wrote to live because she'd been suicidal. And she's like, I've always, basically since I've been born, I've never felt like I belong here, that I'm meant to be here during this time. But she's like, I can tell you being here with all of you right now, I know I'm meant to be here. And yeah, the whole room just like, I mean, I have goosebumps just thinking of that because it's just like, first off, wow, like to know, like when people experience what I had hoped them to experience, that feeling that I felt at the raves when they experienced it, I'm like, yes, like
I did it.
yes. Like I want people to know that feeling. But also what stood out to me is just the fact that like, we just don't know. We just don't know the impact of our actions. And we can't live our life waiting to find out the impact. You just have to lead with a desire. So I led with that desire to be like, I'm going to do this paper bag thing. And what I should have done is I'm going to do the paper bag thing and then just let it go.
Let it go.
Because whatever happens as a result shouldn't actually dictate anything. But we just have to trust if we're pulled to something, there's a reason. But what happens after that is not up to us.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I can't even imagine that feeling, but I had something similar like that happen where I've been posting authentically from my heart and just channeling messages and showing up on social media without attachment, right? Hoping that my people will find me. I'm hoping whoever needs to hear this will hear it. And I got a DM 2 weeks ago from someone who I hadn't heard from in like 10 years. And he reached out to me and was like, hey, I'm just going to leave this here. And it was a screenshot of a conversation he was having with someone else. And basically he shared with this person that a post that I sent, like he saw a post of mine 2 weeks prior that resonated with him so deeply, it inspired him to take some action. And now he's like working on a super yacht in Indonesia. And he was like, hey, just going to leave this here, and like sends me. And I was like, what I said what I said
Yeah.
inspired you to do that? And I was like,
Yeah.
fuck yes.
Yeah.
It's confirmation. I feel like those moments are confirmation that you are living in your dharma, you are doing your purpose. And to me, obviously the goal is to grow and to build an audience and to have hundreds of thousands or millions of people that are experiencing what we're wanting to share. But at this moment right now, I'm like, if one person is impacted by something that I say, do, or share, that is like the most incredible feeling on the planet. Like, it's
Yeah.
everything. That's the whole purpose of why we
Yeah.
do what we're doing. Like
Yeah.
you said, if somebody could feel that experience that you had in the rave, and everything that you're building is to recreate that, like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And to know that all we have to do that is just be ourselves.
Yeah.
You just got to be yourself. I'm working on a new media kit right now, and I used to have one for like Coach Rachel, and I'm working on a new one for like DJ RAE. And I was looking at my follower count, and for 2 years straight, 2 years, it was 17.2. Now I was losing and gaining followers all the time, but like it would not budge.
Yeah.
And then I looked at that kit recently. I think I updated that one like maybe a couple months ago. And now I'm sitting at like close to 18.1. And not to make it about the numbers, but I do feel like what happens on the outside is a reflection of what's happening inside.
Yeah.
And I know for 2 years prior, like why I wasn't moving, things weren't progressing in my business was because I was not being myself. Like
Yeah.
when you look back at my posts, and I've archived a lot of them because they're so painful to look at. They were just like so cringy. I was just trying to be someone else. There's this marketing bro who has like millions of followers. And I was like, oh, I'm going to start creating posts like how he does because clearly it's working. No, because there was no electrical current coming through that. Whereas now, similar to you, I get an idea and I'm like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do this in this way. And it's got a frequency to it.
Yeah.
And you feel it and people vibe with it. And that's where the growth happens.
Yeah.
And it comes just from being yourself.
Ugh. Yes.
Full on weirdest self.
Yes, 1,000,001%. Absolutely love this. Dude, we could talk for hours. There are some really exciting collaborations coming soon, guys, so stay tuned. But before we wrap this up, I would love if you could share, if people are digging your vibe, they want to connect with you, how do people find you? What's coming next? And yeah, how can people get involved?
Yeah, so Rachel Molenda is my Instagram. I'm getting back into TikTok too, so follow me over there. So Rachel Molenda is where you can find me. The Reunion Dance Party on Instagram. Also, the reuniondanceparty.com has all the upcoming details about that. We're doing parties every month in Toronto. We're looking to take it on tour next year, also to the US. We've had a lot of people in LA ask for this, and also in Vancouver. And we've had some bites from New York City. And also, I actually haven't voiced this publicly yet, but I'm just going to voice it because it needs to start being known. One thing I wrote on my paper bag is host a 500-person dance party.
Yep.
And I looked at that the other day and I was like, fuck, how am I going to do that? And now I'm like, all right, let's see. And our 1-year anniversary reunion is coming up on January 25th, 2025. Oh, I didn't realize the 2525. I just realized that on 2525 is our 1-year anniversary reunion, and we are going to throw a 500-person dance party. So
I know, it's like, put a date to it, girlfriend.
Put a date to it. Yeah. Don't have a venue yet, that sort of thing, but just want to like literally tell everyone that you know, because we need 500 people in that room, and it's happening.
Sick.
Yeah.
Well, I am so grateful that we connected. This has been one of my favorite conversations I've had in a long time.
Oh, likewise, sister.
Yeah, absolutely adore you. I'm so excited for future collaborations and to get involved during Reunion. I am so stoked for your 500-person event. I know it's going to be a total success. And I'm going to link all of Rachel's stuff down in the show notes. So if you didn't catch any of that and you want to follow her, reach out, follow, connect. We'll see you guys on the next one. So grateful to have you. Thanks, everybody. Bye.